Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We are here on another Saturday night, almost mediocre sports guys. I'm Anthony, and Mike with you. How's it going, Mike? Couple of weeks now. We're kind of pushed off here. How's everything going?
Pretty good, sir. Pretty good. Ladies and gentlemen, my apologies. Last week's intermission, if you will, between podcasts. Uh, my side of the joint effort had some family issues. My dad with a few medical concerns, but in the process of working through those. Hopefully on the mend, but he's in the best place he can be right now, which is obviously the hospital. But he's in good hands and feeling good about where he's headed. So we'll see how that goes. But for the most part, everything's good. How about yourself,
Good,
sir?
good. Things going good. Ready to get into this. Actually, we're excited about this show today. Everybody, we're not going to get into stuff like we have been with the football and stuff like that. Everybody's seen the games. We know what's going on. We know what Super Bowl looks like. We're going to kind of put in a show, talk about the games, talk about the Super Bowl next week for sure.
Unless, unless you just absolutely want us to talk about flag football, which we would be more than happy to do, or dodgeball, or dart throwing, or any of these useless concepts.
Hey, I
But
don't mind. I don't mind the dodgeball so much. I watch that, and these guys are slinging that ball around. It's crazy. Some of these guys that actually have arms to swing
oh
the little
well,
ball.
here's the kicker, bud. Let's not worry about concussions to the guys when they're playing in an actual game. Let's put them on a field. Let's throw some balls at each other's head and hope they don't get knocked out.
Oh man, yeah. So we won't talk much about the Pro Bowl, as you can see. We're not fans of it, as you can tell. It's just been something that's just for probably the last like at least 5 years or so, Mike. You'd say that it's just kind of really went downhill, pretty much.
Oh, yes, severely, but I mean, to the point that it just became an absolute joke to even have the game, and to the point that this is what we're left to watch if we want to watch this type of event, if you will. I won't even call it a pro ball. I'll no longer do that. I'll just call it a pro event. I mean, it has nothing to do with football. It's just whatever it is, pro activity. Let's go with that.
Definitely, definitely. All right, so we're gonna get into the show today. Things are gonna be a little bit different, so everybody just kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy for tonight's show. I think you guys are gonna enjoy this one definitely. First thing we want to kind of get into is something that recently happened. Obviously, the retiring of Tom Brady. Now, obviously, we'd love to just kind of come on here, spend the whole time talking about how Tom's, been great with his career and what he's done, as a football player, whether he's the greatest quarterback anybody's ever seen, if he's not. There's tons of stuff that come along with it. But this is a little different story that Mike kind of wanted to bring up about Tom's retirement speech. Isn't that right, Mike?
I'll tell you what, but there are times, even when you and I talk, or if we're not talking and we see stories, and I'll tell you what, there are events that you couldn't make these up if you honestly tried to. So, and I don't know how many people out there watching tonight are familiar with this story. As Anthony indicated, it revolves around Tom Brady, but the gist of this story is that, and we all know if you're familiar with football, if you're a big football fan, if you're a Brady fan, we all know he did the retirement video, just a little quick, like 10-minute clip saying, hey, I've already done this once before. Going to make it short and sweet, but I'm officially retiring. That's it. It's a done deal. But what we get with Tom with this particular video offering is that he's sitting on the beach. I don't know, maybe he's close to his condo, maybe he's close to his house. I don't know. But he's sitting on the beach to make this announcement. So I'm perusing through the phone today, which I commonly like to do just to find things to make me laugh half the time. And sure enough, here's a story that essentially revolves around Tom Brady and a person who apparently, I assume, lives close to where Tom does, or just happened to notice where Tom happened to be shooting this video at. So apparently, this person took it upon themselves to identify and verify where Tom was actually sitting while he made this announcement, and proceeded to collect the sand which Tom was sitting on, and now has placed this jar of sand on eBay. Now, we're all familiar with eBay. I've bought things off of eBay, and obviously, a lot of people sell things on eBay. Apparently, this deranged individual does too. So, he apparently opened the bidding at $667 with an 8-day time frame attached to it. Now, I don't know where it sits right now as far as days go, but I do know that there are 124 bids on this bottle of I Dream of Genie Sand. And apparently, the high bid right now sits at $999,000 for a bottle of
For a
sand.
bottle of sand, huh? That he was just kind of saying that.
For a bottle
Now,
of
where was this
sand.
sand at, though? I mean, is this the sand from his feet down there? I mean, from where he was directly sitting? I mean, did he push his hands up off of the sand? I mean, that can kind of
Well, I really don't.
defer
I
how
tell you
much
what.
I'm probably going to pay for this sand. I'm going to say.
Well, I'll tell you what, bud. Uh, I tell you what. Like I said, I don't know how many days are left on this, but as far as to what part of his anatomy happened to be in the sand, you know, if my personal preference would be for it to be where his feet were at, I really have no desire to have sand that collected around, Tom Brady's backside. I won't use the other word because this is a family friendly show. But I just really don't want sand that might have collected, beneath his buttocks area. This it's just
Yeah,
doesn't throw.
it's so insane. The other thing is, I mean, the fact that there's actually bids on this is just mind-boggling to me that people are paying for sand of just another athlete where he was just at for. I mean, that just seems weird to me. Um,
But not only that, but how do you verify this? He
that's
tells me
another
he,
thing.
you know how me
Yeah, that's
personally, Jones. He states that he can tell by the alignment of the hotel and where Tom is sitting that this is the exact location where he would have been when he collected the sand. But here's the kicker to all this. Here's the caveat to all this. You don't know that this was filmed the day before he collected his sand. This could have been a week before. This could have been done the day after Tom and the guys lost to Dallas. So maybe the wind came up. Maybe the wind blew some sand away. Now we've only got half a cheek of sand that should have been the whole cheek. We don't know the whole buttocks. We don't know this. It may not even be that sand. This might be just regular, sand that everyday people walk through. People that aren't valuable like Tom is. So you have no way of validating this. So, but here's the thing. It's like that old adage. A fool and his money are soon parted. And if you look at this, there's 124 fools sitting on this bid right now, and I assume it's going to go higher. And you'll never have proof of this because there's no way of stating for a fact that that's where Tom's
yeah.
at. We need
No,
to get Tom on the show. I say we reach out to Tom, see if he'll come on with us, and see if he'll actually visually, validate that that's where he was sitting when he made this statement.
well,
I
I'm
cannot
hoping if
believe
he's
this.
out there and he knows for sure, he might want some compensation for that too, knowing how much that thing's going up. He is out of a job now, so uh, he might be looking for some compensation on that. Oh man, well, that's a great way to start the show today. Coming back after a few weeks off there, so let's move into our next topic here, though.
Hey, real quick, but one last caveat to that. I stated incorrectly on the amounts, folks. I said 999,000. It's $99,900.
Oh.
But even still, that's $99,000 worth of stupid.
Yeah, something like that, I guess, huh? All right, moving on. Something I want to kind of bring up too, that's kind of been recently brought into the NBA that everybody's kind of talking about is the load management type of stuff that's been going on here. And Mike, I kind of wanted to bring up a couple of things about a couple of players that I've watched that grew up watching and stuff like that, which was Jordan, Malone, and Stockton. When you talk about the players now and how much load management that there is going on in the league, how many players are actually, don't even finish the 82 game season anymore. It's kind of crazy to see that, I mean, you do get a few players that hit that 80 spot or maybe 79, send out at least maybe 2 to 3 games or something, which isn't terrible, but between those three guys there, if you're looking at them, Karl Malone played 19 years, and he played 10 seasons of all 82 games. John Stockton played 19 years. He had 16 seasons where he played all 82 games. And then Jordan played 15 years. In 9 seasons, he played 82 games. And in his last season ever with Washington, he still played all 82 games. So what I'm trying to wonder is, what is so different now for these guys to not be able to play with all the extra things that are accommodated to them, like better workouts, better diets, they have more people to, look after them, do things like that. So if that's the case, what's really going on here where these guys can't be playing full seasons then if everything is better?
Well, one thing that I saw recently, and maybe you saw it too, but Steph Curry actually came on, and I don't know who was talking to him about this. I think it was after a game, and he personally addressed the whole load management thing. His take on this, he literally puts the onus on ownership, and he puts it on management, and he puts it on the
Yeah.
coaches, stating that most players, if you ask them personally, today's current basketball player, they personally have a desire to get out there and play. I don't necessarily buy into this. Steph is, and I get it. Steph's, he's part of the NBA. He's a player. He's a great representative of the game itself, and I'm sure he's got a lot of insight as to whether this is true or not. But I still believe that's an exaggerated statement. I think Kawhi Leonard. We can look all the way back to what happened with San Antonio, and a lot of people put that on Pop, saying he was the one who orchestrated the beginnings of this with load management, obviously with the injuries that Kawhi
Yeah.
had.
Yeah.
But I will swear personally up and down that, and I'm not gonna indicate and suggest that all players are abusing load management. I don't think you are either. But let's get real here. I mean, the injuries that some of these players supposedly have are pretty suspect in themselves. And we could go into the laundry list of players, but that would take too long to sit there and specifically talk about their, each of their individual, injuries and
Yeah, well,
whatnot.
the thing for me is,
Uh,
you know that, though. You know that these guys are, it's not necessarily maybe an injury, it's more of a rest day, but they can't use that. You know it's a rest day. And that's the thing that gets me. If you're injured, if you have a serious injury, that's fine. We understand you got to take care of business, get back, to getting better, and then get back to playing ball. That's fine. You have a legit injury, that's fine. But when they're just using these little things here, a little bit of soreness or something just to get away with it as a rest day, that's ridiculous, especially the fact that we're talking about these 3 guys that I brought up playing in probably the best, if not second best era, depending on who picks up, whether it's the 80s or the 90s, played all 82 games for that many seasons of their careers. It tells you
yeah.
something about, it makes you think, like, how does that happen? Now, how can that not happen nowadays? Because they always say all this stuff, and I just don't understand about how all
Well,
this stuff is just better. They say, better workouts, better diets, and things like that than it was back then, and it still
Well,
doesn't
and it's
change it.
also about today's athlete being entitled and feeling like they want more for less is what it boils down to. My biggest concern with it is not so much just, and the points you're making are great, but here's my other observations of this whole thing is I'm looking at it from a fan perspective because you and I are both fans of the NBA. And so really another issue I take with it, and we saw this recently, with Jimmy Butler in Miami. A kid and his family came up from, I believe it was Argentina, and I think mileage-wise, I think they indicated it was about a 4,000-mile trip for this family to fly in because the oldest son is a huge Jimmy Butler fan, and so somehow they acquired tickets. They flew over into Miami to see the game, get into the arena, sit down, get your stuff, your popcorn, all these other things, get ready. Come to find out, Jimmy Butler's not even playing that night. Not even playing that night. This is this
I
kid's
Yep, yeah,
whole point to this trip was for this kid to come and see Jimmy Butler play. His family somehow they find a way to make this happen, and he shows up and the kid was devastated,
exactly.
devastated.
And I know Jimmy Butler. That's the thing where Jimmy Butler came back at the end of the game, right? And then they were on the court and met up with him. And that's the thing that really gets me too is these people that are going to see these players or see these teams, whether it be their own home team or a team that they like come in to play their home team, they spend their money to go watch these players play. And the fact that you're saving up, saving up. Oh, hey, look at the schedule beforehand. They're coming, here in February or something. I got to save up my money. They go and buy the tickets. Next thing you know, it's like boom, their star players aren't playing. Now it's like, why did I waste my time saving all my money up for this, for me to just not be able to see my players that I want to watch play? I think it's a
Yeah.
joke. I think it really is.
Well, and kudos to Jimmy because, following up on what you said, but it was actually, I think it was the next day, I believe. Jimmy did find out about the story with the young fan. And so Jimmy reached out to the family and he personally had them come down to Miami's arena and he conducted a personal tour of the entire arena, locker rooms and all that stuff, take him on the court, blah blah blah, with this young man and his family. So that's a
Yeah.
kudos to
Oh,
Jimmy.
I agree.
But as one of the other podcast individuals, commented on, that's all well and good, and it's great that it worked out for this kid, that he got to do and experience all these things with Jimmy. But what about all the other young fans in here in the United States?
Yeah.
How about the adults? The average family right now, about of four, to go see an NBA game. We're not talking playoff game, regular season game. A family of four right now, the average ticket cost is $450.
Yeah.
That's a 44% increase from 2012, 2013.
Wow.
44%. That's excluding refreshments, parking, and all these other, little perks
Yeah,
or
or
whatever you want to reference it
that's not
as.
mentioning. Oh, hey, you guys want to go and see if we can get a souvenir or something like that. You buy a jersey or basketball or something to that effect too. I mean, yeah, you could easily go to a game and easily spend $1,000 probably nowadays, and I think that's insane for that to happen for like that, because there's a lot of people that just can't afford that, but they have been loyal fans for who knows how long. They can't afford to
Yeah,
go
and
in
so
nowadays.
if you show up to see KD play LeBron, and obviously, a lot of these things are game time decisions, but you've shown up, you've dropped your money on this event to come and see these two guys potentially play. Lo and behold, you show up, you're courtside, with your $10,000 seats, or you're sitting up in the rafters for, $250 a pop or whatever it may be. And this is going to be a no go with these guys, or at least one of these guys. Then what's the
Yeah,
point? There's no apologies by the NBA for
no,
this.
I agree.
There's not one single apology
No,
for
it's not.
this.
And if you look at this, I kind of wrote some stuff down. These are top players in the league right now. Okay, Joel Embiid, somebody in the running right now for MVP. He's played. He's played the most games he's played in his career so far. In the 9 years, I guess he's been in 68 games. That's the most he's played for a whole season. Luka Doncic in 5 years, he played. He's the most games he's played is 72 games, and that 72 games was his rookie year. Then you have Giannis, who's played 10 years. He's only played 81 games, which is in his 2014-2015 season, which I believe is his second year in the league. Tatum, who's played 6 years, has played 80 games, and that was the most he's played. That was his rookie year also. LeBron, 20 years in the league, has only played 82 games once in his career, and that was in the 17 and 18 season. Kevin Durant, 16 years, has only played 82 games once, and that was the 9-10 season. So this is the thing is, even these star players, somebody like LeBron, things like that too, not even LeBron plays all season long either. You know what I mean? So, when we get into this too about just times are probably changing, and that's just what we're going to have to deal with. If that's the case, then the NBA is going to have to deal with a lot of angry fans when it comes time to, unless you're a season ticket holder, something like that, or, you can afford to get to these games all the time. They're going to deal with a lot of fans being upset when it comes to, hey, my team was here and I didn't get to watch, Steph, or I didn't get to watch Kyrie, whatever the case may be. I think that's going to start causing a lot of problems for the NBA.
Well, not only that, but the two potential resolutions to this problem. One originated with one of our fellow podcasters, if you will. But there were two. One, and I guess this is becoming the more common suggestion, is let's reduce the regular season games from 82 to 72 or 82 to 76. And I'm sorry, that doesn't solve anything. I don't care if you reduce it from 82 games to 72 games or 82 games to 62 games. You really believe the mentality is going to simply say, well, because we play 62 games now, let's just go ahead and play them all for 62. It won't affect the playoffs. Yeah, well, they'll utilize the same excuses for the same
I mean,
thing.
how many years have
That's
they been playing
exactly.
82 games? How many years have we been playing 82 games? You know what I mean? It's not like it just changed. It's not like it recently was just happened in the 2000s or something like that. Where they just bumped it up to 82. And, oh, it just hasn't been working out the way we have. We've been playing 82 games for decades. So what's the difference?
Yeah. Again, for me personally, it falls back to entitlement, and I'm sure I allow for the fact that I'm sure there are coaches or certain coaches that potentially encourage this. I get it. I believe that's completely possible, but I also believe there are a lot of coaches out there that struggle,
Yeah.
getting their players to play like they're supposed to. The other suggestion that was made by the podcaster, and this one made more sense, but I still struggle with how you fully enforce it. But his suggestion was that, hey, okay, so if you've got this athlete who's potentially suggesting that he's got some type of injury, or the suspicions that potentially he's just milking it, and this is more about not wanting to play. Okay, you set him out. Here's the deal: you're going to sit this game out. You're also going to set out 3 more games. It's going to be 3 consecutive games. So you're now missing 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
So potentially you're now affecting possibly your team's positional position in the playoff standings, if that's how good you are. Potentially you're affecting your chances to get to if this happens during the playoffs. Can you really afford to cop an attitude as a player with your teammates and say, nah, I don't really feel like playing? Okay, well, now you're setting out, these next few games. Although I'm curious about that point too. If that was something that was truly implemented in the regular season, where they said, "Hey, if you do this, we're gonna sit you out 4 games in a row. If you do this again, that's going to be 4 more games." What I'm curious about is if the NBA would allow that mentality, but come playoff time, when it really matters and the dollars count, are you seriously going to allow your coaches and your staff to enforce this rule? Because now the big money's at
Yeah.
stake.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see this. So I'd be curious to see if they ball up, if they ever reach that point and say this is what we're going to do. I want to see if the NBA balls up and carries it into the playoffs where it really matters and it hits them in the pocketbook.
I just don't see it happening at all.
I don't either,
Yeah, I
but
just don't see it happening. I think that they're already set in their own ways. They just kind of let things go. I mean, everybody knows that the NBA is ran by the players. I mean, and it doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, for me, I'm not overly upset about these guys. It's fine, whatever. You want to, I guess, if you want to take a break, let's say, or you're injured, quote unquote, whatever. It's just the fact for me that really gets under my skin is, like I said before, is just the fact that people spend their hard-earned money to go watch these people play, and if they can't see them, that's a problem. I mean, it's going directly to you guys. This money that these people are paying are going to you guys. You should be able to put out a great show every single night. It's just like, movies. Think about movies. Think about, actors or something like that. Well, why are people like Jack Nicholson, Sandra Bullock, these types of actors and actresses, why are they always so good? Because every single time you go and see them, they put out a great show. So what is your time? How do you put on a best show? Your best players out on the court. That's how it should be. So that's the best way to put on a great show. You think people want to sit here and watch the bench players go? No, not the whole game. Do they want to see some of them get in? Yeah, they do. As their team's up by 30 at the end of the game, and you can check them in with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that's when they enjoy seeing their bench players. Not when they come in and see their bench players lose by 30. That's ridiculous.
yeah, and back to your point just a little bit ago, but and again, we sometimes we get you and I, and sometimes in our conversations with your dad, and we talk about the guys from back in the day. But back to your point, I mean, these guys didn't dog it. These guys, they didn't ask for this time off. They played through
Yeah.
injuries. That's what it was about. And that's what you had to do, and that's the effort it took if you wanted to win an NBA championship. And now what we have is a league that's primarily full of entitlement and feeling like they don't. I mean, it's hard enough to get them to listen to a coach tell them what to do in the first
Yeah.
place.
Oh yeah.
And so now you're going to challenge them on injuries and things like that we all know are hard to prove in the first place. You know, you can sit there and he can say, oh, well, my ankle's hurt, my ankle's sprained, blah, 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 blah. Team physician can say whatever he wants to say. He can validate it to a point, or he can go to the coach and say, well, I'll tell you what, it's a little bit suspect. What are you going to do? You know, call him out on it? You can't make him play. But you would think that he'd have enough appreciation for the position that he's in and the amount of money that he makes that he want to actually step up, ball out, and play through that, you know, that ridiculousness. There was a guy that played for the Denver Nuggets, and this is not an exaggeration. I'm going back years, and I cannot recall the athlete's name. If your dad was on this show right now, your dad could firstly validate the story, and he might actually be able to provide the name. Guy, not a starter, not a starter. We're talking about in the 80s or early 90s, probably the 80s. And I'm not kidding. On the bench, Nuggets reached a point, don't know if they were winning or losing. Coach reached out to him and said, hey, I got to get you in the game. Let's get on in there. Guy refused to come into the game. Coach is like, what's going on? Why can't you play? Coach, I got a hangnail. I mean, and it hurts bad. Didn't go in the game. Because he had a hangnail? If I'm the coach of that team, I don't care what you make. I don't care how tall you are. You're going in the game or you're leaving the court. One of these two things is going to happen. You're not going to sit on the bench and tell me that you can't play because you got a freaking hangnail? Dude, seriously. I mean, you know, at the end of the game, there's where the real conversation would have come between me and this guy.
That's insane. Yeah, for a hangnail, you know what I mean?
And granted, that's an exaggerated, you know, event story, so to speak. You know, and it's pretty petty, but it was real.
Yeah.
But it's just now it's obviously we're talking about, you know, more severe problems and injuries and those type of things with these guys. But come on, I mean, you got to ball out at some point. It can't just be when the lights are on and they shine bright for the playoffs. You got to grind. That's what it's about. You're about grinding. You got 12 guys on your team. You can't have the one guy sitting because his wrist hurts or his ankle's tweaked. You know, you got to go. That's what it's about. Earn your money. Earn your freaking money.
I agree. I definitely agree, Mike. And I like what we had to talk about that. I think we definitely, you know, let everybody kind of know where we stand with that.
I better get a blood pressure test.
So what we're going to kind of move on into is something that Mike and I started thinking about wanting to start doing, and we're going to kind of call it our beef of the week type of stuff. The one I'm kind of talking about today isn't really of this week. It would have been for last week, but I still kind of think it's going to talk about. But the first one I kind of want to talk about that Mike had brought up to us is slap fighting. The slap fighting championships. I don't know if anybody out there has seen any of this, watched any of this.
Oh no, let me correct you real quick, but it's technically it's referred to as power slapping.
Okay.
They haven't reached the championship yet. There is this. Okay. This is the power slapping league.
So these. I mean, I would consider they got to be considered athletes, correct? They have to be.
No.
No. It has to be. How do you not consider them an athlete, though? How do you not? I mean, if you look at some of these guys are built. I mean, you have to have some sort of stamina. You have to have some sort of, you know, strength to do this.
No, you got a lot of stupidity, is what you got.
I mean, okay, you know, we're going to talk about this because obviously Mike has a lot of feelings about this situation, and they're not good feelings, folks. I can already tell he's not excited about me calling him an athlete. But
I'll tell you
when
what.
you really think about this, you know, we've talked about that some of these guys get knocked out. You have to have certain stamina, and you have to be pretty strong to be able to take a slap or to give a slap too. So,
or pretty drunk
of an athlete, I guess you could say about him.
Not a chance in the world, but not a chance in the world. I'll tell you what. So I came across this entirely by accident. Just this is this past week, folks, and I'll tell you what, you'd be amazed the things you find on late night television. I found this on, and I assume if hopefully, you know, TBS, I'm going to throw it out there. If you want to sue me, sue me. You're not going to get a lot, but you can sue me. I mean, you can only squeeze so much out of a tournament, but if this is offensive to you and you're going to sue me, go ahead. So I'm perusing through channels. This happens to be on TBS, which apparently stands for total bullcrap. I won't put the actual word in there for the S, but you know where I'm going with this. What I proceed to see are two guys that come to, I don't know how many people out there are familiar with arm wrestling. And typically with arm wrestling events, two guys, they approach a podium, start talking their trash, meet at the podium, put their elbows up, do their thing, blah, blah, blah. So I see these two guys and they approach the podium, and obviously I have a curiosity about what's going on. I see powder being rubbed on hands, so obviously, I'm pretty sure it's not a baking show because I don't see any food items, so I'm assuming they're getting ready to engage in something. What they proceed to engage in is, so one is they approach, and I got to preface this. Let me build this for you real quick. Power slapping, as Anthony indicated, essentially boils down to two guys standing in front of each other and proceeding to slap the living crap out of each other as hard as they physically can. You would think this could be done in a bar, but apparently, TBS felt this warranted national television exposure. So as they do this, there are divisions that are built into this. There are heavyweights, I think it's lightweights and middleweights and whatever. There's women that do this. I think it's just men and women. I don't think maybe it involves teenagers. I don't know. But what I saw was the men's division. So what happens, and this is sponsored by Dana White. Dana White, of MMA fame and all that other stuff, is the guy solely responsible for this league. And this is brand new. This is the first year. I don't know how many teams are involved in this. I don't know exactly how it works. But I do know that from the show's format, I don't know how many actual athletes they have, but right now they're all housed. Apparently, the guys anyway are all housed in a really posh, lush house. And literally, if you're watching the episode and they start diving into the elements that are that's what's taking place inside the house. Like I told you, this is Jersey Shore. Meets Dumb and Dumber. I mean, it's amazing to me that a collection of individuals this stupid can be housed in one area like this and manage to function. So what proceeds to happen is they either beat the crap out of each other. There's a lot of drinking, shocker, and a lot of fighting is indicated. A lot of people separating this and separating that, and just blah 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 blah. So we get to the actual event once we set aside the drama of all this other garbage. I'd rather watch 5 episodes of the Kardashians than I would this mess. So when we get to the actual event itself, and I don't know if there's an actual audience for this, from what I saw with the cameras and everything, they don't seem to show much of that. It's focused entirely on the stage. I don't know exactly how this is officiated. I do know that there are judge cards. So obviously, it grades on a scale of 1 to 10, and those are your points, just like in MMA fighting. So there's a point scale. So at some point, one contestant is allowed to call the flip of the coin. So if he wins the flip, that person decides who's going to be the slapper and who's going to be the slappee. I'm just like, you got to be kidding. So once that's determined, again, they step to the podium. There's between 3 rounds and 5 rounds. Now I'm not sure how they determine the 3 and the 5 rounds. So with each round, each contestant is allowed 1 slap. So if you and I were competing, let's say you won the flip, you said Mike go first. Well, then I would hit you, and then if I didn't knock you out or vice versa, then the other person now has their chance to respond and hit back, so to speak. So in this particular event that I saw, this fight, so the one guy wins the coin flip, and I think he opted to be the slap-ee. So the other guy they step to the little podium, they do their baby powder crap. Look like a bad version of LeBron with his powder thing. So the one guy proceeds to, and they do wind-ups with this. They wind up for the slap. So it's a big 1, and you've got 30 seconds to process your wind-ups to the actual slap of the person. If you don't do this, then you're in violation, and I think you lose your turn and you lose points. So the guys wind up 1, 2, and then just absolutely unloads on this dude, right? Guy flinches. You know, this apparently is something that's you're not allowed to do. You cannot flinch. It's a point deduction if you flinch. I think everybody would flinch. I would probably duck, but you can't flinch. The guy over here, they're telling him, you can't flinch. You can't flinch. You got to man up. You can't flinch. You got to stand in. You got to take it. You got to take it. Guy's like, okay, okay, okay. So in the process of this, what they're also asked to do, and I don't know what this is for, but they have to hold a bar behind their back with both hands. And I don't know what this
So
is
it's kind
for.
of
I
like
assume it's
with
for
the arm
balance.
wrestling thing, right? Because don't they, when they do the arm wrestling, they have to kind of hold something too, right? Isn't that kind of the same thing?
I don't know. It doesn't seem to work very well because if you get decked, you're going down. Oh, you're going down with a bar in your hand, apparently. So it's either that or they're so used to being handcuffed by the authorities that just to make them feel at home, they've got them behind, they got their hands behind their back holding a bar. So at least there's something familiar about what's going on here. So the one guy hits the first guy. He kind of flinches. He gets criticized and critiqued and point deducted. He regathers himself. He steps outside the little circle. Guy's telling him, okay, you got 12 seconds, 10 seconds. Get back in the box. You're going to lose your turn. Get back in the box. You're not going to get to slap the crap out of him. Get back in the box. Guy races back into the box. He looks like he's half delusional right now, and he's half coherent. Gets back in the box, hits the guy. And so they kind of cut back and forth. Ultimately, the first contestant won that particular event, and I don't think it went the full 5 rounds. But here's the one that got me. So I'll tell you what. So Cletus walks up to the podium, and Huckleberry Hound walks up to the other side of the podium, and so they get ready to engage. And I'll tell you what, there's a little bit of trash talking that goes on, but between the two guys, I think they collectively had 5 teeth. So that pretty much tells you what they do in their off time. So they're jawing back and forth, and one guy's kind of skinny, the other guy's a little bit bigger. And this is where it actually gets a little bit more serious, and I cannot even believe that this is sanctioned. Obviously, it takes place in Nevada because that's the only state that would allow this kind of stupid. So the real skinny guy, he won the coin flip. He offers to let the other guy go first. Guy steps up, does his wind up. I was amazed in the process. He didn't tear his rotator cuff. I thought he might because he was getting a pretty good swinging motion into it. He swings and he hits this dude so hard that this guy drops to the floor in an instant. But here was what cracked me up. Not cracked me up. As the guy's falling, but he's literally almost falling like in slow motion, right? And the camera behind him kind of shows him falling backwards. And I'm looking for medical staff. I'm looking for like EMTs and all this stuff. All I see are a bunch of these judges or whatever they are, these referees kind of walk up to him, just make sure he doesn't crush his head open against the mattress or whatever it is below them. They kind of ease him down, right? Pan up to the guy, but I'm not kidding. This is where it got serious. So his hands, bud, look like Tua's hands in the Cincinnati game, right? All
Locked
crinkled up,
like that.
locked up, like extreme arthritis and this kind of thing. Not doing anything for this guy, right? Just looking at him. Hey, come on, wake up, bud, wake up, wake up, wake up. The guy he's fighting comes the guy he's slapping comes walking over. Hey, bud, hey, hey, man, you're a champ, bud. You're a stud. You took it like a man. This dude is unconscious. Who are you talking to? And why aren't you people helping this guy? Why are you not helping this dude? Do you understand that right now, this dude's brain is mashed halfway up against the side of his head? This dude is in a concussion situation right now, and you're acting like it's no big deal. So finally, guy's eyes open up. He doesn't know where he's at. They stand him up because he can't stand up on his own. He wobbles off the stage. I don't know where they take him to. Eventually, they cut to the back and they're talking to him. He literally looks like he's been knocked out, and he's talking like he's been knocked out. And what does he say? Does he have any concerns at all about what's going on? No. Well, how do you feel about what happened? How do you feel about that, Huckleberry? I mean, are you embarrassed by that? Do you feel like you represented? Yeah, I did pretty good. I did pretty good. I mean, he got me. He clocked me pretty good. I dropped. I admit it. But I'm a man. I showed I'm a man. I took that stuff. I'm a
I
man.
give him props for that. I give him props all day for that. I mean, I'm not going to stand up in there taking no smacks from anybody, okay? I mean, I'm telling you the same thing. You're going to tell me to flinch. I'm not going to flinch. I'm moving the heck out of the way. I mean, what you make don't flinch, I'm not even going to be signing up. Okay? Don't tell me that. So, hey, he can give him all the credit in the world for that. That's fine with me. Hey, he stood in there, he took the hit, and he went down. I'm sorry. but this, I mean,
But but on a serious note, bud, this is pathetic. This is pathetic. And I cannot believe Dana White endorses this product because literally,
you can't
what
believe that
was
Dana
Dana
White
White's
endorses this? I mean, didn't he just have an issue with slapping people?
well, his wife. He slapped his wife from what I heard. And I think there's a video for it. I keep looking for it. I can't
surprising that
find
he
it.
started a slap event then, is it now? Huh.
But Dana White gets on there and he literally says, "Hey, hey, Huckleberry, I tell you what, he's got a good shot. He showed a lot of poise. He took it like a man with a little bit of training and a few more concussions. He should be good to go. He's not going to be around a year from now. He'll be gone. But hey, he's got some potential. So we're going to keep working. There are trainers for this. How do you train somebody to take a slap? I mean, are you
What I would
serious?
like to know is what is the lifespan of somebody that does? You know what I mean? Like career span, I guess.
That's
Is
what
what
I'm
it is.
saying, bud.
Like obviously, like you got who's like the go to this stuff. You know what I mean? Like who's been doing this the longest? There's no way I could see somebody go past 5 years in being in a slap league or something, right? I mean, you're not talking about like
But
LeBron James and Tom Brady years you're doing this, right? There's no way you get slapped for 20 plus years and still be okay, right?
But I'm looking at this exactly, exactly. I'm looking at this, and I'm not kidding you. I mean, there's some former MMA fighters in there. So to your point about being athletic, some of these guys are, but some of these guys are right out of a meth lab. I mean, that's what they were doing before they stepped on this stage to do this because they thought they could make more money doing this than selling meth. You're not going to be around long enough to make money selling this stuff or to try to be good at this particular price. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. You're going to be dead. You're going to be in a coma, laying in a bed. And this one dude on there, oh, I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it. Yeah, that's because I don't know what the fast food place you were working at got rid of you. Is that why you're here doing this? And how much are you making? I have no clue what they make doing this, and I really don't have enough interest to follow up on it. But it just stuns me. This is what we now consider entertainment. And to your point, but I thought I thought professional putt putt golf was the most pathetic thing I had ever seen covered by a network. And that was on ESPN one night at 2 a.m. in the morning. You'd be amazed, like I said, the sporting events. You can call them that. I won't, but that's what they say. You'd be surprised the stuff you can find at 2 a.m. in the morning, on ESPN or TBS or all these other stations. Putt putt golf. They had a gallery on this thing, a gallery following these two putt putt guys around the golf course. There was a commentator and an announcer, and the announcer is whispering while the guy is taking his putt. And the commentator, when I started watching this, they panned out from the green. I thought I was tuning into like Pebble Beach. I'm tuning into like, I don't know, putt putt, whatever. The guy talking as they pan out, there's a ball sitting there, right? There's a ball sitting next to the cup. As they pan out, I see the golf club putt the ball into the cup. So what do I hear from the commentator and the announcer? The commentator says, "Okay, Jim, so as Bob approaches the hole, I think what's going to be best for him is to approach it this way. Now he needs to find a way to quickly navigate it through the windmill. If he does this and he ricochets it off the back corner and it catches the right, he should be able to set it up just right." And I'm like, are you effing kidding me? And then I find out it's a putt putt course because they panned all the way out, and this is what I'm looking at. And there's galleries of people standing around this, and they're talking about this like this is Pebble Beach. I'm like, this is putt putt. And the killer to me is the winner got $50,000 for this
I'm
stuff.
not gonna lie though.
50,000.
Hey, putting at a putt-putt is worse than being on the green at Pebble Beach, okay? You're sitting out there at Pebble Beach, 85 degrees, nice and sunny, the green's all great. You're going over rocks, you're going through the windmill, you're going over hills. I mean, that takes a skill, Mike. It takes a big skill to be a
Hey, I'll tell
putt-putt
you what.
golfer.
I'll tell you what. I allow for the fact that putting it through the clown's mouth is much more difficult than dealing with the 30-mile wind coming off
I'm
the
saying it.
coastline.
I'm
I
saying,
give
but
them props
we
for that.
got to give these guys their props for what they can do. Okay, if the guy can hit it, over the rocks, away from the lava coming out from said volcano on the way into the clown's mouth, that says something. That's a skill right there. That is a huge skill. You got to be born doing that. You don't just practice that. You don't do that.
I'll tell you, uh, I struggle to call these guys athletes. I really do. Now, are they skilled individuals? Yes. It takes a lot to get a ball
You
through a
know,
clown's mouth or over the windmill.
You
I can't even do
no.
that. So
I'll tell
I
you
give
what.
props
You
where it's
want to
due.
talk about skilled people? You go watch those dude perfect guys. Okay, that's skill right there. This other thing is just people are just like, hey, this is how I can make a quick buck. I've been playing putt putt since I was 8 years old when they took me for my eighth birthday, and I've just been doing it ever since. I'm just good at it. I mean, you just practice and become good. Okay, guys like Dude Perfect, those guys all like out there. Love watching those guys because they make it fun. And man, the things that they do it's excitement. That's the excitement of it. You know what I mean? This ain't exciting. You watch guys slap each other around. Watch that people just playing putt putt. That's something you do when you're just enjoying your night. You're going out on a date night or something like that. Or you're going out for your kid's birthday party or something like that. They ain't sitting there to watch that professionally be done. We won't even watch the Pro Bowl, Mike. Nowadays, you mean to tell me that we want to sit
No, no,
here
no,
and
not a Pro
watch?
Bowl.
We want to watch putt putt and guys slapping each other. If we can't even sit there and watch the Pro Bowl or nothing like that, what makes you think that we're going to go down to something like this?
You know, I was at a barbecue one time. This is a few years ago, right? And I know you may have known about this particular activity before I ever did. So we're there, and this person comes up to me, and there was all kinds of activities going on. It's a big barbecue thing in the summertime. And he says, "Hey," he says, "Mike, hey, so we're over here playing some games. You want to come over and you want to join in?" I said, "Yeah, that's pretty cool. What you got going on?" He says, "Well, you could do this, you could do that. And also, we got some cornholing going on." Excuse me? He said, "Yeah, we got you want to cornhole?"
Oh man, I can't.
And I'm like,
I
"What?
can't lie. I love me some
I mean, what the F
cornhole.
is
I
that?"
love me some cornhole.
I thought is what because that sounds like something like you'd find on an adult
Oh, I
film or
thought you were
something.
talking about you. I thought you were
Not
looking for
something
the
like
corn on the
this.
cob. That's what you were looking for.
No, no, no. I'm like cornholing. Is that even like an appropriate word? I mean, I don't want to cornhole with anybody. I mean, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? And I played it. I don't know how they came up with the
well,
name. Is the bean bag
yeah.
filled with corn
I don't know
kernels?
what
Is
it
that
is,
where
but
it
I'm
comes
not
from?
gonna lie. I'm a fan of cornhole. I am a big fan of that, man. I think that's fun. I love playing that game. We do that all the time. True. I'll play that. I'll play that. We'll go to a barbecue or something like that. I always have there. You cannot go to a barbecue nowadays and it's not somebody not have cornhole. I'll go out there. I'll
I'll tell you
play. I
what.
have fun with that game.
I suck at it. And I admit that I suck at it. But and I will say this: that's a skilled
You
sport.
gotta.
That's a skilled sport.
I love that game. No, that's amazing. I'm terrible at it too. I mean, I know there's other ways to play. There's strategies too. I'm just trying to make it on the whole. That's all I'm trying to do, and I suck at it.
I won't. I won't. Much like putt putt golf, I won't watch it on like a televised broadcast because it's really just like defies logic to me.
Mhm.
But I will say I have an appreciation for the strategy that's attached to cornholing, and I can even say putt putt. Now, if we go back to power slapping, that's a whole different deal. That's just too many cases of stupid standing in front of each other and just literally proceeding to find out if they can physically kill somebody. I mean, so I have no respect for one single aspect of what they do. And if this continues, I'll just be stunned. I'll be saddened too because this is what the country's come to as far as entertainment goes. Are they athletic? Maybe a little bit. The MMA guys, yeah. The guys that came right out of the meth lab, no, sorry, I'm not gonna buy that.
All right, all right. Well, moving on now. That is Mike's beef of the week. Like I said, we're gonna kind of get into mine now. Little different than Mike's, though. I mean, I'm gonna kind of get into. We haven't gotten into this very often recently at all. Obviously, it's not time yet, but there are gonna be times that we're gonna want to get into baseball. But recently with the Hall of Fame, for myself, I was a little upset that our boy from Colorado, Todd Helton, did not make the Hall of Fame. Scott Rowland and Fred McGriff did. Um, I feel like the only reasons that really kept Helton out from these two was just the World Series that Scott Rowland won and the World Series that Fred McGriff won. Now, neither one won two. They both only got one. But I think that's the only reason why they took them, because I'll tell you what, Mike, I'm looking at these numbers between all three of them, and Helton pretty much beats Rowland out in all the stats wise. Him and McGriff are kind of interchangeable with some of the stuff too, but I mean, looking at this, looking at all of their resumes, I feel like Todd had a better resume than Scott, had a better resume than Fred. The only difference between it is that those guys got World Series. Now, I know we're always talking about winning counts, winning matters, and that's fine. But I'm telling you right now, the fact that this guy's been loyal to Colorado, stayed in Colorado his whole entire career, under the ownership that it's been, never trying to get better. It seems like the loyalty that he kept to the Colorado Rockies is insane, and that should also be noted for him too. But other than that, like if Scott Rowland came out, he won 3 World Series, Fred McGriff got 2, 3 of them, then that's fine. I get it. But the fact is, because they only won one more than him, I think the stats should still get him in over just the one World Series that he did not win. He still did make one though, at least.
Yeah, and I'm going to preface this real quick, bud, with Todd's going to get in next year, and if he doesn't, I'll be stunned.
Yeah,
Right?
no, he
He got
better get in
he
next
got
year.
he got 72% of the vote this year. He'll get his 75 next year. McGriff, I want to focus more on what you're talking about here, obviously with Scott and Todd. But I just think the Hall of Fame itself is kind of a mess in itself. I think they're in part they live on too much of a pedestal. I think this 1 and 2 players selected, sometimes one, sometimes none type thing is a little over the top. I mean, I think there are baseball players that are deserving of getting in every year, even if it's just one player, and sometimes maybe two. So I think they're a little full of themselves on that. Whereas football, they'll vote in 35 guys a season, it seems like,
Yeah,
and it just doesn't matter.
yeah.
They've diluted the Hall of Fame in football to the point that it's stupid. I looked at the stats, but and I can see, like, and I love Todd. And I think he should have gotten in too. If nothing else, I think he should have gone in as well. I'll put it that way. But I do look at the numbers. The numbers, and if you look at the numbers, I mean, Scott, 2,077 hits. Todd, 2,519 home runs, 316 for Scott, 369 for Todd, a batting average of 281 for Scott and 316 for Todd. What I look beyond with these two guys, though, Bud, and to your point, Scott, a journeyman player, won his title with the Cardinals. Obviously, Todd only had the one appearance. What I start to look at, though, is when you look at their things like their Silver Slugger awards and things like that. Todd had 4, Scott had 1. Scott went to 7 All-Star games. Todd went to, what was it, 5. Rookie of the Year was Scott, 8-time Gold Glove
Mm-hmm.
winner, and obviously,
Todd was a 3-time Gold Glove winner. And then Todd
yeah,
was a 4-time
exactly,
slugger, like you said. But the other thing is that Todd has 2 on him is he won the batting title. He did win the
yeah,
batting
exactly. And I was
title,
going to get to
and
that too,
Rowland
but
never did.
so I get your point.
But here's the other thing. Here's the other thing I'm going to go after, okay? They both pretty much played kind of basically at the same era, okay?
Yeah,
But think about the first basemen that Todd Helton had to go up against too in his career. These are some of this is just some of the first basemen that he dealt with in his career to still be able to put up the averages he did, play as long as he did, still get Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers, All Stars, back time. Albert Pujols, Hanley Ramirez, Ryan Howard, Prince Fielder, and Adrian Gonzalez. Those are some of the first basemen he used to have to fight with to be considered a great first baseman. And look at those. I mean, obviously Albert Pujols is far and beyond anybody on this list, of course, no matter what, in my opinion. But I'm talking about when they're playing at the peaks of their careers. I mean, you're talking about those guys are all-star caliber players. And
exactly.
even almost all of them are almost close to being Hall of Famers, in my opinion. I mean, obviously Pujols is in, no matter what. You know, Ryan Howard has a case. I don't think Ryan Howard should be, though. The guy struck out more times than he probably hit home runs. But he has a case for Prince Fielder, I believe, should be. If I don't know if he is. I don't think he is yet. Adrian Gonzalez can. But like I said, and I get, like I said, he should be in next year. But I just don't see if you looked at everything, all of his accolades and everything like that, how, if like you said, if not necessarily maybe knocking one of these guys out, but why shouldn't he have just got enough votes to get in anyway? Like I said, look at everything, you read off everything. You know, I even have McGriff's numbers, even McGriff's higher, you know, because in hits than Roland is, he scored more runs, more RBIs. He has more home runs than all three out of the three, for sure. But like I said, for me, it's just the fact that if you look at all of it together, there's no reason he should have been left out. If you're taking these two, is basically how I'm putting it, and I have a real problem with
Well, I'll
that.
tell you what, too, bud. I'm going to tell you this too, and I know that this is a stigma that's attached to Rocky players. You may know where I'm going with this. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it's out there. Firstly, let me refer back to Scott for a second. There was one curiosity I had about Scott's percentages. You know, in 2018, he got 10% of the vote, 10% of the Hall of Fame vote 4 years
Yeah.
ago. It's kind of curious to me that in the four ensuing years, he increased 65% in 4 years. And I get the numbers are solid, but it's kind of curious to me that there's that type of increase in 4 years, you know, with a journeyman player whose stats are solid. But I don't know. I kind of find that a little, I'd like to question him about that as to where, you know, how this determination is made and how the increase, you know, came about to the degree that it did. That's a huge
Yeah,
increase
I
in four
mean, I think the only
years.
thing that may come into play is just if finally other players that were kind of basically shoe-ins or that were in front of him finally get in, then obviously what's left there kind of just they pick off of those guys. You know, kind of get what I'm saying. That's kind of what I'm kind of thinking is how it went up so bad. You know, maybe I'm trying to think who went in recently, but maybe those guys were the ones that were getting the most votes, so they're cold and rolling out until those guys finally got in. Now it's like, okay, now we can look at Scott, look at his stuff. It's time for him to get in type things recently.
Well,
But that's
one
how
thing
I'm
I'd
gonna
like
take
to look
that.
at, and I one thing I'd like to look at, and I failed to do this unless you've got it with your stats here, but and this goes back to the point I was going to make with Colorado Rocky players. This is top to bottom. This is pitching, hitting. It's all of it. There's a stigma, and I think it still applies. I think it always has. When you're playing at altitude, you know, we know the numbers increase. We know that's how it works, whether it's justified or not. So I don't have these road stats to home stats on me. If you do, that would be great. I'd like to see the differences in Todd's production away from Coors Field as opposed to at Coors Field. So unless the committee is looking at this and saying, hey, look, you know, Todd had these stats at home, Todd had these on the road. So there's a degree of imbalance here.
And I with somebody like Todd Howland, I don't really like to have that comparison. I don't really like to have to, you know, talk about that being that it's the Colorado thing that made him. Because here's the thing: when you're talking about Todd Helton, you're not sitting there just talking about some guy that just only hit home runs for the team, and that was what he was for. He's a cleanup hitter. When they needed him out of a bind, he can hit the grand slam or something like that. You're talking about a guy that could hit for average. He could hit for power. If he needed to get that run in, from second because there he would find a gap. And then on the other hand of that is the same thing on the field. As soon as he stepped on the field, the guy was a glove. I mean, he was a vacuum over there with his glove. The guy was, anything off the dirt, boom, he dig it. If he had to make the extra, reach, the stretch for it, boom, he could do it. Balls hit right at him, he's fielding it. He's making the right play. He's got an amazing IQ for this game, in my opinion. I love his IQ. I love the way he's played. And like I said, going back to the loyalty in Colorado, like that's fine. I get, anybody saying, oh, the altitude makes a difference. It's not like his stats are mind blowing. It's not like he's in the 500 home run club. It's not like he's in the 2,000 runs club or something like that. It's just like flabbergasted. His average is like over 350 or something. These stats are just great for his entire career, in my opinion. And I think that going back to this whole, oh, it's just a Denver thing. No, I think it's crap when it comes to him. He does everything well, and he's done it his whole entire career. I was excited that he at least got to see the World Series. That was something that was exciting for me, to at least say he at least made it. You know what I mean? I'd have felt really bad for him if he at least didn't make it. But in my opinion, he does everything. He's a great all-around player. I'm not saying Scott Rowland isn't either, because he can. Scott Rowland was a good clutch player. I mean, on that hot corner too at third base, he's just as good as anybody else I've seen play that position. There obviously I've seen great players there like Adrian Beltre, obviously Nolan Arenado now playing in the league. I've seen plenty of them. Going back even to Mike Schmidt, things like that. He's right up there as far as defensive wise and stuff. But I'm just, if you're looking at everything overall, and there's nothing that shows me between all three of them that one or two of them just pull away from each other. I feel like they're all just about the same as far as all their accolades and everything like that. So in my opinion, it's either they should not all three get in, or they all three should get in my opinion. Or you know what? In my opinion, I think looking at all the stats, looking at everything together, if you're going to leave somebody off, I think Scott should be the one that gets left off of this list, and Todd and Fred should be voted in. That's just my opinion, though, on that.
Yeah, and again, I'm a huge Todd fan too. I think, again, though, when you look, and you can break it down, if we look at the pitching of the Rockies and altitude and these type of things, we see the ERAs that the team typically puts out there is a grand total ERA for this team on a yearly basis, and typically they're in the high fives, low fives. I mean, they're absolutely astronomical with their pitching staff alone, and I think sometimes, again, whether it's right or it's wrong, those numbers they gravitate towards what people are looking at. And it's one of the things they fall back on. When you look at pitching, we know the Rockies have never had great pitching. Yeah, we know the Rockies struggle at home with pitching. And it can lend to the argument about what players do, with their hitting. Players do come into Coors Field and they do hit a little bit better. They do hit a little bit further. I mean, it's a reality of being at altitude. And I know baseball's worked to adjust to that to some degree. I don't know exactly. I can't speak as how successful they've been with the changing of balls or whatever they may have done, these type of things. But I knew that Major League Baseball looks at those things, and I know that Todd's still going to get in. I will say that I would have preferred to see. I have all the respect in the world for Fred McGriff. Like you mentioned, his numbers were solid. I personally would have leaned towards Scott and Todd if I had to pick between the three. Yeah. If you're asking me to pick two, I would have leaned towards Scott and Todd. McGriff deserves to be in, but if I'm looking at the overall numbers and those type of things, those are the two guys I would have leaned towards. I would have preferred to see Todd and Scott go in. I think, obviously Todd's very deserving of that, but I think the altitude works against him. He'll still get in. So it's not as much of a concern to me. I know you're speaking from a respect factor and loyalty, and those are qualities you have to look at too. But we're both big on that. But I know he's going to get in. If he doesn't get in next season, I'll be surprised because he's right on the cusp now. But if I had to pick between the three, I would have selected both of them. But it's a balancing between the two. I mean, Todd statistically is a slightly better ball player, and however those things are viewed, when it comes to Gold Gloves and Silver Sluggers and things like that, a lot of that's perspective, and a lot of it's it's based on quality perception of the people that are looking at those things. The numbers obviously slightly favor Scott in those regards, slightly. But ultimately, I like I said, I would have leaned towards Todd, and I would have leaned towards Scott. I would have left Fred off this particular year. If you had to, if you asked me to pick one person I'm going to leave off, I would have left Fred off this year. And we'll see what happens next year. Um, but when I started looking at the Silver Sluggers and the All Stars, but your point is valid as to who Todd played against and who he was competing against. But for those particular awards, year in and year out, I
Yeah, and
get it.
obviously, like Scott has,
Um,
like I said, I mentioned even like an Adrian Beltre, things like that. Obviously, A Rod was playing third around his career too, things like that. So it's not like Scott wasn't going against great players either. It's not like I'm not saying that he's not worthy of this. So I don't want
no,
anybody to
not at
sit
all.
there and
But
think that I don't think Scott Rowland shouldn't be a Hall of Famer or anything
yeah,
like that. Fred McGriff shouldn't be, but it just for me, looking at everything, and I've done other things, and I'm a big stat guy and all this and that, and I feel like you know everybody talks about stats. I mean that's what the thing is nowadays. It's got to be stats. So if you're pulling the stats together and that's what you're going off of, as far as everything that they've done for a career, then it's kind of hard to say that what Todd has done isn't worthy of being in there this year with this group of guys, being as that their stats are pretty much exactly the same. That's just for me.
yeah.
I feel like if that's the case, you just let all three of them in. It should be that way. They should all three get in. But like I said, I'm the same way. I feel like he's obviously still going to make it no matter what. Probably be in by next year, I would hope. Um, well, we'll wait and see how that goes. So, moving on.
I mean, I will say this. I think as baseball goes forward, and admittedly, there have been a lot of Rockies. There's never, I think, Todd Walker was not a career Rocky, or
Larry Walker.
Or
Oh,
Larry Walker. Thank you, bud. Larry Walker was not a career Rocky. And there are very few Rockies that are even in the Hall of Fame. We
well, I
both know
mean, but his
this.
best
But
years were with the Rockies, though. I mean,
yeah, exactly,
yeah,
but
I mean,
exactly.
he was a
But it's
monster of a
based obviously
career.
again on the body of work, and Larry has that. But going forward, I will say this: I think for Colorado Rocky players who are still to come, uh, unless their careers are just absolutely off the charts over so many other individuals, they're going to struggle to get in, and part of it's going to be based in whether it's right or it's wrong. Altitude will play a part in some of those decisions, and it's going to affect some of the Rockies as they go forward and their hopes of getting into the Hall of Fame. Now, if they're career Rockies, and that's another thing where I think that could work against Todd, but is that, and not that it's right or wrong, but he played his entire career. He didn't get a chance to showcase his abilities away from the Colorado Rockies. Yeah, you go on the road for 81 games a year during the regular season, and during the playoffs. But if Todd had stepped away from the Rockies, and I wish he had, I told you this. The Rockies did a disservice to Todd, and Todd made that decision. So there's that caveat. But the Rockies did him a disservice by not allowing him to be traded or offering to trade him to a team that was fully in position to challenge for a World Series. Todd had earned that right. He should have had that opportunity, and I wish he had taken advantage of it if it was offered to him. But I think Todd also hurt himself by staying with the Rockies for 17 seasons
I
and
don't know if it
producing.
would, because here's the thing is, I don't feel like his stats change whether he goes to another team or not. I don't think he falters, and I don't think he becomes any better with a different team, in my opinion, I guess. Because I mean, if you like I said, you look at his stats. I mean, other than maybe what home runs not being completely stellar. I mean, he almost hit 400, which is great. But I mean, his hits are over 2,000. I mean, 2,500 hits, 1,400 runs, 1,400 RBIs, and he batted over 300, 316. That's great. I mean, you got to think about the MLB, and this is something we'll probably get into later, and this is something that's really bothering me. I don't want to jump into it too much, so, we'll talk about it, but the averages, how much they've dropped, I feel like, recently in the MLBs, and how we're okay with watching guys hit, 250 or 60 or something. If they're putting up 60 home runs, it doesn't really matter. But, that's a conversation for another day. But I'm just saying, to bat for a career over 300 is pretty insane. That's pretty great. I mean, to do. I mean, I think that's amazing. To bat for that and play that many years. And I don't
Sure.
think that changes if he leaves. It's like I said, when you watch a player like Todd Helton, he hits for whatever is going on in that moment. So, runners on second and third, 2 outs, he's not going up there trying to hit it out or something like that. He's going to play situational. Where are they playing me? How many runs do I need? Do I need both these runs? I need both these runs. Okay, I got to try to hit a gap, or I just need to score the guy from third. So am I hitting a sacrifice fly? How many outs are there? Or am I just trying to pull the ball, trying to find an area? He does everything so well to be able to say, even if he goes somewhere else, I don't think anything changes for him. You know what I mean? He's not that type of player where I think if he was to even go to a Dodgers team, or if he was to go to a Yankees team, that he would change the way that he was, to change his his gameplay just because he's a Yankee or just because he's a Dodger. I think he still plays the same way, and I still think he finishes his career close to, if not with the same numbers, whether he leaves Colorado or not.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Bud, in that, Todd is a Hall of Famer regardless. I agree with you 100%, but I'll be curious to see what his production would have been, when he was playing 81 home games, say, with the Tampa Bay Rays, or, you know, uh, if he's playing for Toronto or something like that, just to see what the production would have been. We'll never know. I think, but the body of his work is Hall of
Yeah,
Fame. That's a bottom line with it. Regardless, the stats are the stats. He has the stats to back up Hall of Fame,
yeah,
enrollment.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's there. I am curious though to see what they would have been, as I am with most any Rocky. It's not just Todd. I've always been curious how these guys produce once they do transition to other ball clubs, to see if in fact there is a lot of validity to that. In fact, in part because of what we see, the struggles of the Rockies, rotation continually seems to be year in and year out. They bring in, and they've never had stellar talent in the rotation. You and I both know
Yeah.
this. I
Oh yeah, yeah.
mean, few and far between. But even some of these pitchers that have stepped away, from the Rockies, their careers diminished once they stepped away from the Rockies in Coors Field. Yeah, it can go both ways. But the bottom line with his stats, with Todd Helton, they are Hall of Fame credentialed
Yeah,
stats. And
definitely.
he didn't get in this year. I'd go so far as to say that he's guaranteed to get in next
Yeah,
year.
definitely. I hope so. We'll wait for next year and see where that goes. But moving on, Mike, looks like Kyrie has asked for a trade. Another one of these Brooklyn players.
I hope it's to
Looks
Russia.
like now officially the big three that were once in Brooklyn have all now asked for trades. Obviously, James Harden got his trade, but
Katie asked for a trade?
KD did ask for a trade earlier in the season. He did ask for it, so
Oh, I thought you meant now.
no,
Okay,
I
I
mean
know what
he
you're
had
talking
asked
about.
for one
Okay.
earlier. Now Kyrie's asked
Yeah.
for it. Um,
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, is he going to get traded? I mean, is that somebody that you want to lead your team right now?
Well, you and I know that I am not a Kyrie fan. I'm not. And this is sad because when he was at Duke for his one season, I was a big Kyrie fan. I wish he had stayed at Duke through his sophomore season. I thought he had a lot more learning to do. He would have benefited from Coach K, and the system they run. It would have better prepared him for the league. But he was a superstar talent, and he opted to go pro. And I don't even think when he began his career, I don't think he showed signs of the person that he is now. I think he was more conventional. He played within the system, uh, and he wasn't challenging the NBA as a whole, so to speak. But now, we saw this. I tell you what, once he left Cleveland and got away from LeBron, the guy's demeanor, his attitude, has changed. I'd say it's swiveled 100%, and he plays so much of his game. It seems to be built around himself, and he's just, to me, he's an absolute detriment. If you step outside the athletic ability, this guy's mindset is an absolute detriment to any team that he would be associated with. I would not put this guy on my team. I wouldn't want this guy on my team, if nothing else, just for the absolute head case that this guy is. I would bet money there's only two options for this guy, and surprisingly, he's not going to find a lot of takers for a guaranteed contract, for a max contract. He's not going to find this. He's not going to find this. It's not going to be there
You
for
would
him.
not
He's
put
got two
Kyrie
options.
Irving on your team.
Would not have him on my team.
No, even
He's a
if you are
superstar
a
talent, but I
team
don't need
that
the
is
headaches.
getting ready to be your maybe a third seed, fourth seed, you know you're missing that one person. You're not taking Kyrie Irving to at least try to get you to where you need to be a contender to get to an NBA Finals or at least try to win one. You're telling me
I would not do
I
it.
don't.
I would not.
I just don't see how you could not. We're talking about this guy, and I get that he has his problems. I do get that. But you're talking about somebody with the talents of this. I mean, this is insane. How many other guards in the league right now? Name me five other point guards that are better in the league than Kyrie Irving that you would take.
There's not very many. There's not very many at all. But I'm looking outside that box, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But if I'm going to contract this guy, I'm contracting this guy not for
But
a
we're not talking
season.
about contract. We're talking about he wants to get traded. We're talking about if he just wants to get traded. So why would you not take the trade at least? That's fine. I mean, and I guess it's depending on what you're trading and what you're getting for it. But what if you're just like I said? What if you're that third seed, fourth seed, or something like that that just needs another scorer, needs another player? Why not take? Why not? Why not? He wants to get out of there. Maybe a different scenery, maybe a different coach, a different perspective changes him around. Whatever happened, that whole thing in Brooklyn just ended up being just a train wreck. It was supposed to just be
Yeah,
him.
I
It was
agree.
supposed to be him and KD first, which I was on board for. Watching these two play together, I was on board. I wanted to be. I was, rooting for the Nets. I was like, yes, I love it. When Harden came in, I was just like, no. I was like, this is stupid. And then you got Blake Griffin going on. LaMarcus Aldridge ended up moving in. All this other stuff just started happening, and I was just like, this is turning into basically a team of let's see if we can get all the guys together to just make a huge ass run to get a team to win a finals. And I was done with that at that point. I did not want to see that
And then
anymore.
you jettison
I didn't want to.
Harden, and then you jettison Hardison, and you bring in
Yeah,
Simmons,
exactly.
and that was a massive joke.
And so for me, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. You know what I mean? And so I wasn't a huge fan, but I'm telling you right now, I would take Kyrie Irving on my team if I'm one of those teams that need him. If I need him, if he's ready to just get me to that next step or something like that, I would probably take him right now in a trade. If I have the stuff willing to give for him, I would. And, in the end, like we said, the goal at the end of the season is to win a championship. And if he's got enough talent to be able to get me to where I need to be, I say, why not? Why not do it?
But you can't. There's only two teams that are, as you know, that are actually really, literally, are even being remotely considered as having a chance to get this guy, and it's the Lakers and it's the Mavericks. You literally want to team this guy with Luka Doncic and watch that team killer join up with Luka and watch it absolutely disintegrate. That's what exactly will happen.
I
It
don't
will
see that.
give
I
Luka
don't see that
it'll
it's
give
gonna
Luka an
disintegrate.
additional weapon, but it's not going to give the Mavericks enough to get over the
Who else
top. They're
does
not
Luca
going to they're
have
not
on
going
the
to take
team? Who else
anybody.
does he have on the team that can score?
That's what I'm saying, bud. That's
But
what I'm
that's
saying.
so I don't
Even
think
with
he.
Kyrie, what are they going to do with him? What is Kyrie going
Well,
to
he's
accomplish?
gonna
They're not.
open it up more because here's the thing: is Kyrie can shoot too. Kyrie can
Yeah,
drive. Kyrie can shoot. He's gonna open up the spot for Luca to shoot too when he needs to. I think going to Dallas would be great. Now I know that I've heard obviously trade rumors with it that Spencer Dinwiddie might have to end up going into that trade, which does hurt him a lot. But I mean, I would take Kyrie Irving, every single day out of the week over Spencer Dinwiddie if I had to choose between the two. So you're getting better talent. You're getting you're going to open up that floor more by having Luka and Kyrie on that same floor with you.
but
I
even
don't think
with Kyrie, they're not winning the title this year, bud. It's not going to happen. And so Kyrie, if you're not going to give him a max contract, and there's no guarantee he'll accept it, even if
who
he's with the Mavericks, so you get him for the half the season or whatever's left. He shows up, you get to, almost to the conference finals. Let's say you fall one round short. He says, "No, I'm not staying." What did you accomplish?
who in the West has a better 1-2 punch than Luka and
No,
Kyrie
you
if
got to
you're
look at
putting
you got to look
together?
at the team though. But the Nuggets
No,
would take the
who's the
the
better
Nuggets.
1-2
The
punch
Nuggets
though?
as they're constructed right now would take the Mavericks out in six
Okay,
games tops.
how many finals has the Nuggets been to recently?
Oh, but you can't look at it that way. Well, how many has Luka been to?
I know, but I'm saying Dallas is. If you're talking about team wise, okay, well, for one team wise, How many championships has Dallas been to? How many have the Nuggets been to then
But
recently? And
that's
how many have they
irrelevant.
won?
You're talking about what they have as a talent right now. They
Uh,
couldn't even compete with the Nuggets.
this
They would
Nuggets
lose in
team is the
6
same team
games
that
to
they had
Denver.
last year. Did they make it to the finals? I'm talking about you're having the same team with the Nuggets, and I'm not taking anything away from the Nuggets. I'm not,
Yeah, I know that.
I love what the Nuggets are doing this year, but I'm saying this is the same team that the Nuggets have. Dallas is trying to get better, so you add Kyrie, it's going to make them a better team. So maybe it doesn't win on the finals or anything like that, but there's nothing that shows either that Denver has a great chance of winning, because this is the same team they've had for 3 or 4 years now, and they haven't shown that they can even get to the finals with this team yet. And I'm not talking about the team in Denver, because I feel it's more of coaching than it is the team itself. And I've always said that about it. But I'm saying at this point, Dallas is getting better with getting Kyrie at this point. Now, I'm telling this right now. This is going to piss off everybody that's going to sit here and talk about it, because everybody's going to be like, well, we don't want Kyrie and LeBron to end up together. It's going to make them a whole lot better. Okay, well, if you don't want to see the Lakers teaming up with them and becoming better, and you don't want to see LeBron win another championship, or whoever's out there, if they want to see him win another championship, they're going to want him to go get Kyrie. If they don't want to see another championship, then somebody else needs to go out there and get Kyrie. Because like you said, if not, he's going to end up being a Laker, in my opinion, too. I believe so, too. But I mean, I just feel like, I understand he has his problems. I understand, what's been going on with him. But I think it just has to do with the Brooklyn thing over there. There's something going on. The coaching, wasn't
Okay,
great
but
with there with Nash and
would
stuff
you
like that.
really,
But
would you really want to drop Kyrie Irving on the Sacramento Kings basketball team with what they're building, bring in this potential atmosphere killer, and watch him possibly just drift into the abyss because this
man, I'll
dude
tell you
fails to call
what. Yeah, if you put him in that Sacramento team, ooh, man, that is. I mean, you're talking about De'Aaron Fox and Kyrie Irving in that backcourt with Sabonis playing the way that he's playing too. I mean, Sabonis is playing
Well, remember,
all-star
we don't
level
know what they
ball.
would have to
De'Aaron
give
Fox
up.
is among. Well, that's the thing is, I mean, if you're the Kings, those are two untouchables. You're not
Yeah.
touching Fox and you're not touching Sabonis anyway. So if they go for the trade, you're going to have those. They're going to have those three. You're going to get those three. I mean, if they go for it, I don't obviously. Yeah, if I'm Sacramento, I mean that would be the dumbest thing in the world to do if they gave up one of those guys to get Kyrie. In my opinion, I would not give up, Sabonis, and I would not give up Fox at all. I mean, those are your two players. They're both they can, they're young. They can, lead your franchise. They're already leading them. I don't think they're fourth in the conference right now, but yeah, I mean they would keep him in my opinion. So you put him with those three guys, Sacramento does get better. Like I said, you can go through all the teams. You can you put him in
Oh, you
Denver.
can.
I mean, I think
Any team.
if you put him in Denver, they're I think they're odds to win the finals. And like you said, obviously it depends on who you're giving up. But obviously, if you have to give up maybe Murray for him, I still think they are. You're going to team up Jokic and Irving together. I mean, it could happen.
If you put him with the Lakers, like we talked about, and I even hear speculation I've heard speculation from other sports personalities that even that can't be worked out for different reasons from different people. That it's going to be almost impossible for the Lakers to pull this off. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But if we go off of the assumption that Kyrie were to wind up with LeBron and obviously Davis, that's a killer cut. That's a killer trio.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, it's almost devastating, and it could alter the seedings come playoff team. Obviously Davis would have to stay healthy. Kyrie behave himself.
Yeah,
those type of things. You know what I'm talking about. But
yeah.
whether it happens or not, I don't know. If it does, it could be potentially damaging to the Memphises and the Denvers. And the really right now the way it's playing out right now, it's Denver and Memphis are slowly starting to pull away from the pack. So we'll see what happens. But if a trade like that were to play out, that changes the landscape of the Western Conference, playoffs by the time the playoffs, roll around. With the Mavericks, I just don't see. You're putting with Luka, but at the end of the day, he's not going to re-sign with you. I don't think, even for a max contract. I just don't think that's what he's about. He's still going to want a position that allows him a better chance to continually get where he wants to be. And I don't think the Mavericks offer that right now. As it is right now, Luka's reaching out to ownership and management saying, hey, you got to get me more people, more people. And it's not just one player. They need multiples. And Kyrie's, he'd be a great addition. I'll never take away from Kyrie's athletic ability with a basketball. He's a stellar athlete. And he is, when he plays right, he's at the top of his game. And there's very few that can compete with him or compare to him.
Yeah.
But when you can't keep your head
Yeah.
right, you can't contribute to a team like you need to. And I think if we sat down with Kevin Durant, I bet you money KD would say, you know what? I was wishing you'd have got rid of him a long time ago. I mean, I'm sick of this crap. And not that KD's not a head case too. He's the one sitting there, like you mentioned when we started this conversation. He was one thrown out. I want to get out of here now anyway. And part of that was based around the fact that Kyrie's over here throwing temper
Well, yeah,
tantrums
you
and
got
going
Kyrie, and then
off.
obviously they had the issues with Steve Nash. They didn't want him being the coach. Obviously, Nash really kind of,
And that was a
in my
mistake.
opinion, wasn't a great coach either. I mean, I love what Jacques Vaughn's done with the team. They've done really well. Obviously, losing KD is the main reason why they started to falter. KD was, in my opinion, kind of shooting his way up to maybe even working towards, being an MVP, candidate possibly. But the injury obviously take him out. But I think what they tried to do in Brooklyn really screwed them over with just going and trying to get this big three established and stuff like that, and knowing that the three guys that you went after just it didn't work. It didn't work out right. Like you said, and kind of going back to what you said with Kyrie, in Cleveland, he was a whole different ball player than when he left to go to Boston, and at that point it was he needed to.
And didn't KD petition for Steve Nash? Wasn't
Yeah,
that their
yeah, yeah,
boy?
yeah, yeah. And so that's the thing for me is I think for when he played in Boston, he was considered the main guy. That he had to carry that Boston team. So in Cleveland, he had LeBron, he had Kevin Love, he had other guys around him that could help him out. Now he still played great. I mean, he was stellar in the finals, things like that. Hit the big three that we know about to help seal the deal type stuff. But you have to understand what once you want to get out of this and you start having to become the big dog and you have to be carrying the team, it's a lot harder than you really think, especially in the NBA like that. This isn't Duke, playing college ball or anything like that, or being in high school and leading your high school team and things like that. This is the NBA, and so when you're that guy and you're supposed to carry the team, you got to every single game that you're playing, you got to average your points even more than what you normally would, and to carry a team like that to the finals. And he wasn't ready for that. He was still too young. His head wasn't on straight, in my opinion, yet. And then he goes to Brooklyn thinking, oh, okay, he's going to team up with KD. It's going to help him out more. And then it just turned into this huge train wreck, with getting, like I said, with Harden and Griffin and Aldridge and this whole type of thing. It almost felt like they were trying to be the next Miami Heat team when LeBron and them were there. They ended up getting Ray Allen come in, Mike Miller. They just started adding these little pieces and stuff like that to try to get the win. But I would still take that Miami team over this Brooklyn team any day because there's just more talent on that team. Obviously with Wade and LeBron being their prime, Bosh is amazing. Obviously I love KD and what he's done, but Kyrie doesn't still measure up to what Dwayne Wade has done for his career. Same thing with James Harden. He's not at the same caliber as what Chris Bosh has done in his career. Yes, James Harden's a tremendous scorer in my opinion, this and that. But I think what James Harden is trying to do for his career now is he's just trying to win a championship now. That's what he's going after. I think if you've watched his game, he's not scoring at will like he used to. He doesn't get to basket. I think he's kind of taken a step back from doing that. Assisting more, getting a little bit more rebounds. But he's ready. I think he's ready for a championship, and that's what he's hoping for. Is that him and Embiid could try to carry to get to one. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That Boston team is just so good though too this year that I just don't see it happening.
No, yeah, it's going to be tough. But back to Kyrie. I'll tell you what. I personally go so far as to make this statement that if somehow the trade to the Lakers does not work out, and I can't say that he wouldn't wind up, in a position with a team, whether, we'll wait and see. But here's where I would put Kyrie right now. If he doesn't somehow wind up with the Lakers this season, And if that happens, yes, potentially they could win the NBA Finals. If that does not happen, I don't see him ever winning another NBA final. I don't see it. I don't
Yeah.
see it. I just don't. And I think, and again, back to Dallas, Luka, with the talent that this guy has and what he's looking for to try to get to the next, to the next tier, to an NBA championship. First of all, you got a combative personality coming in. I don't think he'd work well with Luka. I just don't think he's willing to share the spotlight to that degree. And that's not going to work with Luka. I think it's a problem waiting to happen across the board. And Kyrie is going to carry that stigma a lot of places. The Nets offered him the max contract. They offered him this, and he said no. You had your chance at a max contract. They were, through all of this stuff that you and how you conducted yourself, you were offered a max contract, and you said, I don't want it. It's not good enough. I don't want to be here. I get that. But you haven't exactly put forth the effort to make New Jersey a better basketball team. You took all that time off during COVID. You milked that for all it was worth. In the offseason, you've made ridiculous statements about society that have embarrassed not only yourself and your team and people in general because of your ignorance towards what you're talking about. And so you wonder why New Jersey struggled to even make you this offer in the first place. And then when they do, you throw it in their face and say, I want out of here. Well, guess what? Those kind of things blow up in your face. And now you've only got really literally right now two teams looking to acquire your services. And one is your best shot at literally getting back to the finals. And it's only because LeBron's there. And if Anthony Davis stays healthy, and even then it may be questionable, but they could probably get back into the playoff hunt. They're just on the outside right now looking in. And yeah, Kyrie comes on board, and I'm sure they make a serious push. But I'll tell you what, those kind of players, regardless of the sport, you don't need that. You don't need those. Those are cancers. And they kill franchises. They absolutely devastate them, and he's a cancer.
Yeah, I mean, I take him. I take him any way possible, especially if I'm that team that, like I said, they need something to kind of get him over that hump. I think he's that guy that's out there.
I'll be curious.
I would do it.
I'll be curious, like you mentioned, though. I'll be curious to see what KD does with all this.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but. Great show today, guys.
Great show.
Hope everybody enjoyed it. We enjoyed getting back out here again. Once again, we did
it without one foul word.
Right, exactly. But once again, we want to send prayers out to your dad, Mike. Hope everything goes good with him. We
appreciate it,
sir. That he was having some health stuff going on with him. So definitely prayers sent out to your dad for that.
Appreciate that.
Please, definitely, everybody, once again out there, please like, subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up on this one. If this is something that you enjoyed, we kind of went a little bit different. We're talking about some other things out there that, not everybody else is talking about that, are kind of, and there's some of the things that kind of bugging us a little bit that we decided to. So we kind of like to bring some of this stuff in some more, so let us know how you guys thought about it, our beefs of the week type stuff. Let us know about your beefs. Did you have any beefs of the week also? Any of this stuff that you've seen before that you think maybe that, we weren't, you let us know if you're like, oh, you know what, I've never heard of that. That was actually pretty cool that you guys are talking about that. Or let me know how you guys feel about, the Hall of Fame thing too. If you guys agree with me or if you guys don't agree with me, maybe let me know if there's somebody that you think that should be in the Hall of Fame that's not in there too. Like I said, we're open to everything. Let us know anything else that we could talk about. Anything else from you, Mike? Kind of thing.
Just following up with what Anthony said, folks. As always, greatly appreciate your time and consideration and tuning in and listening to us talk about what we enjoy. Certainly, we got into just a little bit of debating there, and kind of again touching on what Anthony said. Give us your thoughts. I mean, are you pro one side or con the other, or do you just have a separate viewpoint that neither one of us actually thought about that could give us some insight to something maybe we missed? But again, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to seeing you next week. Hopefully the time change didn't throw you off, but hopefully everybody enjoyed what we discussed tonight, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, everybody be good. Anthony, as always, a pleasure, sir.
Yep, same here. everybody stay safe. Have a great week. We'll be talking to you guys again next week about Super Bowl stuff. All right? Have a good night, everybody.